awesome. Well, thanks for joining me today for this. I'm really excited to have you. This is my first time doing what I'm calling real creative talk, which is basically where I talk to like different creatives and kind of just gives you the opportunity to share like what you're up to and hopefully inspire somebody looking to maybe get into like your art style or your craft, even industry too, for like people
Yeah.
who have like professional like art industry jobs. So that's the main goal of this. And of course, I sent you over a few questions, and
Mm,
we can just go kind of down the line. I have basically like six for you,
okay.
and we'll try to keep it under 30 minutes. But I think that we'll be able to reach that time. My first question for you, and I think something that everybody would want to know about, is just tell us a little bit about you, kind of like who you are, what you do as a creative, things you're passionate about.
Okay. My name is Ashleigh Matthis. I work with a lot of different stuff. I work with polymer clay, I do watercolors, I do bug taxidermy, I do whatever hyperfixation I have in the moment is kind of what I really stick my hands into. I like to leave myself a little bit limitless, with
That's
reason.
awesome. That's
As someone who has
awesome.
ADHD, it really affects my art.
I'm the same
Yeah.
way. I am the same way. I feel like I'm constantly thinking while I'm creating.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Well,
all the
that's cool.
time.
And you said bug taxidermy. I'm really curious about like that. Like what goes into like bug taxidermy?
Like
Oh,
it's
okay.
like pinning.
That's
It's
cool.
it's a fun way to, I guess, say it, but yeah, I do
Yeah.
that and poetry, and I write a little bit as well.
Oh, that's awesome. So you kind of
Yeah,
you do like a whole bunch of like different creative things. I love how like the snail like sculptures and
yeah,
like the taxidermy, it's all kind of like nature like feeling. You have like a very fun like nature theme to it.
yeah.
And then writing on top of it, it's super cool.
Thank you. Yeah,
So
nature really. I mean, nature kind of changed my life in a way. Something as simple as a leaf is, something beautiful to appreciate in a day. So I try to do that with everything I do.
oh yeah. Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. I know. I need to incorporate more nature in my art because I feel like it's just art that's like given to us. It's all around everywhere. So
Absolutely.
well, that's
Yeah.
cool. Awesome.
This
And
is a
I'm
small thing.
curious. Yeah, exactly. I'm curious how you kind of like got started or figured out that that was like your style. Like, how did you get started? Like working with like the snail sculptures or like choosing to work with kind of like more nature, bug taxidermy and cool things like that. Did you just wake up one day and you're like, I'm just gonna try this, or like what encouraged you to get started?
Um. So there's a lot of deep stuff that I could talk about, but um, insofar as like just getting started with the snails itself, with polymer clay, at first it was I was wanting cooler earrings, and I couldn't find what I was looking for on Amazon or any of these corporate, owned places, and so I just decided to make my own. And I found this Facebook group. I think it's called "You Can Make That Into an Earring, and a Lesbian Would Buy It" or something like that on Facebook. And so I joined it, and a lot of people do that on there where they make it. And so I started looking up tutorials, and really started making like miniature foods. I started off with Adventure Time characters. One of my first sculptures was this little guy. My earrings started off way too big, but it's
Oh, that's
Jake the
cute.
dog from Adventure Time. Um,
Yes.
and then it ventured off into like croissants or bread, or I had a bunch of mini foods, but then I lost them. I just made these last week, so these are like peanut butter jelly sandwiches with peanut butter and jelly, of course. Um,
Oh my goodness, those are so fun.
yeah, and like a little croissant. This is how I wrap them too, with like moss and wax stamps. I think it's really pretty. And then after polymer clay, well, during polymer clay, my partner She wanted me to teach her how to make snails, and I didn't know how to make snails yet, so I taught myself how to make snails, and so people ended up just really liking them. Um, so I started making more of them.
Oh,
This
that's
is one of my
awesome.
first little guys. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love how they look so like realistic too. Like the ripples on the side, it just adds such a nice touch to like the
Yeah.
sculpture itself. It's like so much more detailed than if you just did like the simple like smooth edge. I love that you made it kind of whimsical, like in a way.
Yeah. This one's my favorite right now. It's kind of hard to
Oh,
see with the light, but it's kind of I try to incorporate things like what defense mechanisms would it have if it were like a real creature. Some things have like special colors or markings that look like eyes or teeth or whatever. And this guy, if you're looking straight forward at it, it looks like a face looking back at you with
oh
like the
yeah,
nose and the mouth and the eyes. Um, it's kind of cool.
yeah.
Um, I feel like I'm missing a question.
No, I
Was
think
there?
you're like getting into like the polymer clay like side of it all. And I like that you're using like how you like when you're choosing your colors, you're paying attention to like what colors are already present like in the wild because as an outsider, we would just look at that, maybe thinking like, "Oh, she just chose colors that she liked." But it's cool that you're like including like that element in there, like the
Yeah,
colors as a part of it. I think that's really neat.
yeah, or even things like this Cinnabon snail. It's not necessarily probably going to exist on our world, but it might exist in a different planet. You just never know.
That's so cool.
Um,
You got the icing down too.
yeah, and people kept telling me to use watercolor clay, not watercolor clay, watercolor for a long time, and I refused. I didn't like how it worked, but then I ended up giving it a go, and I started getting pretty decent at it. This is like
Wow.
a flame bowerbird.
Oh, it's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, or like frogs and stuff.
Oh my goodness. I love how they're like hyper realistic. I love the bright colors in there.
Yeah,
So cool. You're making me want to go out in nature now.
yeah. Speaking of, this is photography.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I just have
goodness.
my hands in a lot of pots.
Yeah, no, I love it. So you're definitely like dabbling into a whole bunch of like different like areas. And with the
Yeah,
polymer clay too, because I've also been trying to work like more with like polymer clay to make like little charms because I too really got into the polymer clay earring era where like that's all I was doing. But I'm curious if you have like any of your own personal tips for like somebody wanting to start working with polymer clay.
yeah. So polymer clay is really tough to work with at first. The kind that I get, if I'm going to be honest, there are some like kits on Amazon that more often than not are for probably for children. But it's durable and they have different colors, more colors than a usual kit will come with. So I usually get those, and sometimes they come with different colors I didn't get before. I don't like Sculpey and I don't like Fimo for whatever reason, but I do like them for liquid clay and glazes. And I have a lot of tools, so I keep all these different tools that help me with like circles or like digging deeper. Like I'm just gonna pull some of them out so you can kind of see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so there's some tools that kind of look like a ball. You can use those to kind of do things that you can't do with like your fingertips. A lot of times people start out with their hands, or with a toothpick or paper clip, and that's what I started out with. But getting the tools really helped a lot. Plastic wrap helps with like skin textures and also helps you prevent like finger smudging somehow or another if you use plastic wrap on and off. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, I think you can print things on paper and put it on the clay and peel it off, and the ink stays on the clay. I've seen people do that. Um, yeah, there's lots of things I could talk about. One of the things that I really enjoy is using soft pastels to make color. Um, for shading and stuff, especially like my croissants, I will use like a dry brush and use soft pastels, shave off soft pastels, and shade them that way. And you can color liquid clay with that too, soft pastels,
That's
and
really
that'll help you
interesting.
with
I
shading.
never would have thought about using like the pigment from the soft pastels to color in different pieces. I myself, like a long time ago, I actually used eyeshadow, but it makes a
Yeah,
lot more sense to
yeah,
use like the pastel because the pigment's so much more intense, like in those shavings. That's a really clever idea. Or the plastic wrap too. Like that's really clever because I always imprint my fingerprints everywhere. It's like you
yeah,
can't prevent it, you know, like is that's how it feels when you start. So that's a really, really awesome tip too.
yeah. And with the liquid polymer clay in the shavings, you can make like jelly or blood. Or with this guy was completely white. Okay, like this color, I painted him entirely with liquid clay and soft pastels. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
really helpful. And
it
you
looks like
bake
a
it.
ceramic glaze too. Like you were able to get kind of like, you know how when you fire like the ceramics, you get like that glazed look. It's really hard to do without like being able to fire, I feel like, your clay. And you were able to get almost like that look of, you know, you like fired these, even though this is all hand painted and glazed using those different tools. That's
Yeah,
really awesome.
I use a female glaze.
Really, really cool. I know I've been experimenting with like UV resin, but it's a little tricky. I'm not a big fan of the bubbles, you know, like getting all the bubbles out. That's tricky.
Yeah,
Yeah. Using the
I've
fire.
not ventured into that yet. I started experimenting a little bit with resin and making silicone molds, but I need to get better materials.
That's how I feel with it too. I've yet to venture into the world of silicone molds. So
Yeah,
I need to do like the switch. I need to do the mold part and then, you know, work on the resin a little bit, but that's awesome.
yeah.
Well, cool.
I'm on that direction too. Like there's people that are using armature to make like figurines with monster clay, and I'm wanting to learn circuitry to like put inside to like make glowing eyes or like fire and that stuff. But I am way behind. So
Yeah, it's like such a like I feel like you almost need like a whole like course on using like monster clay too. I've looked into like working with that kind of clay because apparently it's great for figures and you know details, wrinkles, all these expressions, but I'm like, oh, it's so mendable. I don't think I'll know what to do at first without knowing like the inner workings of it all.
yeah, I'm excited to learn, but it's gonna take some time to get all the material that I want.
Yeah. I feel you. I know. My Amazon list for like materials has been just overloaded. I think I have like $300 worth of stuff in my Amazon and I just have not clicked send yet because it's always I like to say as an artist, every day I wake up and there's something new that I want to do. I start so many side projects and
Yeah,
never finish, you know.
no, yeah, that's me with everything. That's probably the hardest part as an artist for me is what affects me the most in my everyday life is like ADHD, because I have so many ideas that just go not necessarily unfinished, but or like they don't stay unfinished, but they're just like I'm just gonna for a second I'm gonna start this one, and I do that with everything in my life, and I need to do better.
I do too. I know. I've been saying I need to get into journaling. Apparently, it's supposed to make you more organized. But even then, I'm like, oh, I just get excited and then I start doodling. So
Yeah,
yeah, just start doodling everywhere. Well, that's
yeah.
cool. And I know that we were getting into like this realm, but I'm curious, like what advice would you give a creative kind of like also looking to maybe get into like your line of art, like nature art, like if somebody is looking to like get into maybe working with nature more because it looks like you work on it in like a sculpture side, a painting side. How do you find like getting into nature in a an easy way and like without feeling overwhelmed by everything that's like out there?
Um, I guess I would try to make it as personal as you can. 'Cause you can give love to anything. If you want to give love to nature in the way of making art, then that's your choice. Um, and there's just so much out there to explore. Find something that you can appreciate every day, because that's what makes this conscious experience worthwhile. Sorry, that's what makes this conscious experience worthwhile. I stuttered. Um,
No, you're good.
I had to learn that lesson a long time ago. I was wondering what all this is about. Why are we here? And there's really no clear answer other than my philosophy teacher told me that it's these small things that make this conscious experience worthwhile. So that's when I really started delving into nature. I used to find a leaf every day um, to make the day better. That's kind of my personal connection with it, in a way. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
then I sort
totally.
of probably all over the place.
No, not at all. I was gonna say I can relate to that so much because I feel like it is paying attention to different things that you're noticing. One, are making you happy. Things that interest you. And I do the same thing because my style is very colorful and playful, and I often am on the side of like kid at heart situation, like because
Yes.
I love cartoons. So for me, I also agree. It's just like, paying attention. It's to these smaller things, things that make you happy or what keep you going. And it's honestly what keeps the world moving.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Yeah.
even outside of the art world, it's still super important. But I totally think that that makes sense.
Yeah, just finding something every day to appreciate, whether it's a lesson to learn, or a person you met, or a thing that you liked, or a color you hadn't seen before, maybe a sound that you liked, or something you smelled, or something you ate. It all feeds back into your art in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I feel like that's why I love coffee shop drawing because it's like
Yes, I
there's
do that as
smells,
well.
there's sounds, there's like you get to eat like there's a little bit of
Yeah,
everything there. Just like I feel like getting out of the house and maybe or out of the studio wherever like one may be creating. I feel like that's
yeah,
so important too, and that kind of ties in. I feel like you notice a lot probably, and tell me if I'm wrong, but on your nature walks, I'm guessing that you like get inspired by different things that you're seeing, because I feel like hikes last forever and there's only so much to see, which is all nature related.
yeah.
So,
No, it's beautiful. I really enjoy it. I just take it all in whenever I can. I don't get to go very often, so I just, whenever I'm out there, I am there and nowhere else.
you're just
You know?
there. I love it. Putting away the screens and just like getting down to it. I feel like that's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Cool. And my next question for you, which is kind of a fun one, which every artist gets asked this question. If you've gone to art school, which we actually did go to school together. Believe it or
Yeah.
not, we did. It was 6 years
Yeah.
ago, which is nuts.
Yeah.
But I know, right? It went by so fast. But
I know.
what is your favorite artist and why? I feel like this is such like a art class opening question, but I'm just curious.
My favorite artist and why. I have two favorites. My favorite artist is Vincent van Gogh. So original, I know. Um, because he really wasn't just an artist. I personally think of him in a way as a philosopher. Um, he just really saw the world for what it was, in my opinion. He was just such a real person. There's so many fickle and fake people in the world, and whenever I look at things that Van Gogh has written or said or painted, it's just very personal and real to him, you know. And I admire that among all else. And then I
Yeah.
like Claude Monet. His art's really cool.
Yeah, I know he does have such a cool style, and I'm so glad that you said Van Gogh because actually he's my favorite as well. Which, of course, that's why we both look at each other and we're like, okay, we know, like it's not basic, I swear.
Yeah,
But I went to the experience, like the Van Gogh experience, and of course,
same.
have been learning about him ever since I ever, picked up a pencil. He's like one of the most commonly talked about people. But what you realize is you become like not only an artist like further down the road, but even an adult, that he's such a real, like you said, like person. And hearing his quotes, his form of expression, the fact that he went through and made portraits throughout his whole entire life, and not one looks the same. It's so beautiful, like to me, and I can totally relate to that. I think Van Gogh is an amazing favorite to have, and I think his colors are fun too. His colors inspire me a lot. I don't know how you feel about the colors, but I
They're
love,
pretty.
yeah, they're
Yeah,
awesome.
no, they're
Yeah.
beautiful. I every time I actually have crayons in my bag that I carry around because I like to cater to my 5-year-old self, and with crayons, I like to try to recreate like Vincent Van Gogh or Claude Monet paintings because it works like oil paint if you let it. Um, it's kind of funny. Yeah,
Yeah, like it reminds me of like the like mushy oil pastels where like you press and it's literally like you're using butter to like
yeah,
draw. Yeah, I
yeah,
love those. Those are so much fun. It's like you do get to be a kid in that moment. And there's no erasing either. You can't erase the
yeah,
oil pastels or the crayons because it's just going to make it even more crazy. I love that.
yeah.
That's in your art bag. That's a fun question too. Asking somebody what's like in your like art bag that you carry. I feel like that's also a really good question.
You can ask it.
Yeah,
I'll
go
tell
for
you.
it if you want to share.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I got that. Obviously, I have a little notebook. I always carry paper and pens or pencils on me because I never know what ideas I'm gonna have, and I don't know if my phone's gonna be dead. So I always have things to write down on. So that's a good thing, a good tip for you little artists out there. Um, I have my mini portfolio because my paintings are tiny. I work really small. I was never a big artist person. I was a little artist person, and I only realized that after I dropped out of art school. Woo!
I know
Um,
they always tell you you have to go big, and then you're always like, I don't want to. Like, you don't
yeah,
have to, they also tell you that white space isn't a thing, but white space is really important. So,
yeah, it can add a lot to a piece of art, just how you use it.
mhm.
Um, what else do I have in my bag? I have it's called the Book of Gerald. I have this notebook that I have these. So I have this universe in my writing aspect of my art career. I have this universe called the Gerald verse, and it's these silly characters. It's kind of like if Adult Swim and Dr. Seuss kind of had a love child, and that's kind of what it is. It's really cool. It all rhymes, and some of the jokes are really terrible. Don't let your kids read it. But I'm working on it, and I'm gonna be publishing some books way in the future. I'm just cultivating this little world. So, in this book specifically, is the only place where they don't rhyme. They only rhyme in the comics. They rhyme in the books. So it's really exciting. So we got Gerald and his neck tattoo. Can we cuss on here?
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
definitely. This is an adult
So
yeah, this is like an adult platform. Kids, if you're watching, sorry. You're learning now.
yeah, yeah. So I have this book that it's completely finished. I just have to illustrate it. It's called Sandra Couldn't Find Her Fucking Seltzer, and it's this old lady who can't find her seltzer water, so she journeys to the far ends of the world and stretches the universe. Even speaks to an oracle, finds a celestial horse to try to find it. Um, and I've got this. There's a crazy cougar bird. There's a super stankus polywankus, drippy drippy faucet, sticky cup. There's lots of stories that I've been writing that are in the works. I've got some of my poetry in my bag. Um, so I have more serious poetry, and then I have prose, and then I have like silly poetry. Um, because that's just we're all over the place. What else do I have in my bag? Watercolor paint. I always have watercolor paint on me. Mini canvases and mini watercolor palette paper. Yeah, and then I think that's it. There's definitely some other stuff in there, but that's my usual.
That's fun. It sounds like you're ready for like an art emergency. It's like it's like you're like I'm ready for any creative like emergency that could happen. I like that you even have like the canvases in there because I totally need to like revamp like the space in my art bag. It's also currently very small. I've been working with markers a lot. So
Yeah.
there's not like a
Ooh.
heavy transportation for markers. But I love that you have canvases because that's something that I always want to bring, but I always fail to do so. So I feel like
Yeah.
they're really handy to have. And it's cool that you're writing as well. It almost sounds like you're going to like be like an adult, almost like comic illustrator, or like even could write for those shows too, because they're always looking for people as well. I love that like it's like adult humor in the form of cartoons, because I
Oh
think
yeah,
I've seen a few. You've posted like a few little like things here and there. And they are really fun. It's almost like something that you would see in the section of the New Yorker, like, if you
yeah,
were going through really, really cool stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's intentionally badly drawn, just because I think that's funnier. I have the
I didn't
capacity to
even
draw
think
really
it was
well.
badly drawn. I thought it was
I
like
just
good.
like to
I
say
know
that.
that it's like the thin line work and stuff like
Yeah,
that, and like not like super straight lines, but like I was like, I think it's fun. Like the fun characters, like messy, silly, like
yeah,
childy feel, but yeah,
yeah,
it's like funny humor.
yeah. It's super fun. I pretty much have them all memorized at this point because I taught myself how to work on it without the paper there. So it's been in the works for a couple of years now, and it's just going on in my head. I'm not a writer right now. Right now, I'm a sculptor, but whenever the writing comes back, I'll keep working on it.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. Well, awesome. See, that was like a fun, like side question. I'm definitely going to include that for like future ones too. It was
Yeah.
cool to hear what you have in your art bag. And we're down to like the last question that I have for you, which is also a very common question, but it's just if there's like anything extra that you would like to share or anything extra that you would like to give like to the people listening or to the platform. And it's okay if there's nothing as well. I don't expect you to have like, like this crazy thing to add or anything. It's okay if you're like, no, I don't have anything either.
Oh,
Um,
it's okay.
but
I will impart my endless wisdom. No. I guess I should say that you're making art. When you started making art, it's for you and what you want to make and no one else. And I think whenever we get older, we get so wrapped up in making what everybody else wants because maybe that's what sells or maybe that's what gets our family to let us be artists or be proud of it or maybe what our teacher would want or you know we seek validation in every aspect of our lives but ourselves. And so, whenever you make an art, just try to remember that it comes from you and it's for you and no one else. And if nobody else likes it, then that's their problem. You know, do what your heart wants.
oh yeah. I love that. See, that was beautiful. No, that's so awesome. 'Cause, like when I went to school for art education for a little bit, and I ended up going a different route, but that was kind of part of my philosophy. I totally agree with that because everybody experiences something like that, like in the art world. I feel like you're either chasing money or like what people are expecting of you or what clients have you creating. And I think it's so important to keep that like mindset and remember that. And I wish that I heard that more as a younger artist, like back when we were in like high school and
Me
things
too.
like that. Yeah, I know. I know. We're like, things have changed so much, and I love that that's, your advice because I think it's so important.
It's so important. And if you guys want to learn something new, learn it. You have
Yeah.
access to endless information at your fingertips. It's right there.
Yeah, that's so
So,
true. Never be afraid to learn.
yeah.
Exactly.
What about
Cool.
you?
Well, me? What like last things for me to add?
Yeah.
Are you
Why not?
throwing a question my way?
Why not?
Yeah. I love it. If I were to add any last things, here for like this question, I would say like don't be afraid or necessarily feel like you have to have your style down either like in the beginning, because I feel like adding on to like what you even like brought up, I feel like it goes along with the expectations of feeling like you need to have your gallery ready or everything needs to have a theme. And starting out, your theme's going to change so much, like, and it's okay if you don't know that you want to make snails right off the bat, or like
Right.
you don't want to
It'll
make
change
like
in a year.
illustrations. Yeah, like it can change, and don't be afraid of change. And yeah, because I that's also something that I wish that I knew was you don't have to have your quote unquote style or theme right when you get out of school, or even like down the line. You don't really have to even, I feel like, necessarily find a theme if you don't want
Yeah,
to. I know people who still are chasing that, I guess, but yeah, it's just, I would say I would add that on top of your advice sandwich. It's like an advice
yeah,
sandwich. Yeah.
yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That really had me stumped a lot when we were in high school. Was that I felt like there was this overhanging, very heavy expectation that we had to have a style figured out right now. We have to know exactly what kind of artist we want to be right now, and I have to know what I want for the rest of my life, like the B movie. And I don't know. I'm 17. You know, when I went to college to be a 3D animator, because I guess that was supposed to be making the most money at the time, so we chose that. Um, I tried to do the same kind of art that all the other 3D animators were doing, and I just didn't find any passion in it. Don't make something that you're not passionate about, because that takes all the soul, all the fun out of it. Which is one of the reasons why I dropped out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and I
still
feel
know
like that
you.
happens. Yeah, that happens to a lot of artists too, where you start and it's so overwhelming. And I remember I switched my major so many times, and art school always was, in one class you see everybody's making like advertisements for commercials, and then you're like, well, I don't want to do that with my graphic design, or necessarily that, but like, I think you get pulled in by the crowd. It's like, well, I feel like
Yeah,
I have to do this, so I can totally relate to that. And 3D animator, that's cool. I didn't know that that's what you went to college for. That's fun. It's like, makes me think of Pixar and those cool things.
right. And that's kind of what I was going for. So I originally went in for 3D animation and fine arts double major. And then I eventually kind of got into the graphics design stuff, as you do. And then I got into, they didn't have any animation classes available when it was time for me to get them. So I ended up still having to take classes and to fill the credits, which was glass blowing, guitar, and photography. And so I fell in love with all three of those, and I was like, got into 3D animation the next semester, and I'm like, I'm not a computer person. This kind of sucks. And I
Yeah.
was an intern graphics designer, so like it was just I just came out here instead and figured if I'm going to work for the rest of my life to survive, I should probably just get a job and do what I like on the side.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Not feel like, like a slave to the art career choice that you were like, this really isn't my thing, but, pays the bills. I know that struggle. I definitely
Yeah,
can feel you there. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Cool. And like final closing, of course, thank you for meeting with me again. And this is like the first episode, so I'll just be, editing it, uploading it. I'll definitely like plug Ashleigh like on my page, or, somewhere around here on whatever platform this is going to be posted, either YouTube and then like TikTok, Instagram. So you guys can check out all of Ashleigh's stuff there. And definitely, if you want to reach out to her about anything, I'm sure she would love to talk or answer any more questions. But it was so lovely meeting with you, Ashleigh. And I'm going to turn off the recording as well here in a little
Okay,
bit.
it was
It
good
was
meeting
great
with you
talking.
too.